There are an infinite number of world lines where you do not find yourself listening to this. You're here now though, and that's what makes this worthwhile. So today we're going to ask, or to talk about what's in a name. Would a rose by any other name still smell as sweet? Yes. Next question. At some point in my life, I found myself living in Orange County, which meant I got to frequently avail myself of their finer malls. There were many to choose from, such as the landlocked Fashion Island or their largely monochromatic Spectrum. However, the one I often went to was Triangle Square. It had a name which I often thought about, especially when I was drunk enough to think about the meaning of words or how words had meaning at all. Fortunately, Triangle Square had places to drink, which meant I got to spend my grad student bucks on cocktails. I also ended up thinking, in the days before smartphones, why these drinks were called cocktails. I know this sounds like the whole thing about peanuts not being peas nor nuts. Turns out they're actually a soft mineral similar to talc. But I would repeatedly have this thought and then forget to look it up by the time I got home. So mixing booze with other stuff is not new. At some point in the late 18th century, this included mixing a purple brandy liqueur known as Parfait Amour with ginger. If it sounds like that concoction would wake you up, you're not alone. By the 1790s, there were references to the effects of drinking this potent mix of ginger and alcohol as giving the imbiber a cocktail. In case you were wondering, and you probably weren't, a cocktail was a reference to the practice of cutting a horse's tail short in order to make it look like a market as a non-thoroughbred. I don't know, I guess it looked jaunty or something. But what if I wanted to be cruel to horses? So this is where ginger comes back with an M. Night Shyamalan twist. Today we're going to learn about gingering. All right, so how does this work? First, you shave down a fresh piece of ginger, and I can already feel the upwelling of dread here. Then you find a horse and its ass, and then, whoa, that's one jaunty horse. I bet its tail is sticking up now. Anyway, speaking of horseplay, pony play, and other nightmares, I bet you're wondering if the BDSM community has co-opted this technique. They have. It's called figging, which is derived from the 19th century term feeging, which is the old-timey way of saying figging. Also, you can now ruin someone's search history by using the term figging plus Sonic minus Pinterest. These are all the things to bring up at your next cocktail party if you want to seem witty. You thinking about figs now? How about now? No? All right. So anyway, language is powerful. Knowing is half the battle, and studies show that nearly 35% of the remainder is language. So this question of how language shapes thought has been an active area of research in linguistics and was famously brought up by the early 20th century linguists Edward Sapir and Benjamin Whorf. Their work led to what was known as the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. The strong version of this is known as linguistic determinism, and is the idea that your language totally governs your thoughts. If you can't think it, you can't say it. The weaker version of this, and the one that is more commonly supported today, is that language doesn't totally determine what the thoughts that go through your head are, but it certainly influences it. Of course, the even weaker version of this is that Sapir and Whorf never collaborated on a paper, formally proposed a hypothesis, and you're just a butterfly dreaming that you're on YouTube. All right, anyway, case one, how this comes up. A phrase says a lot about a culture. While the jury's still out on the French Revolution, we can all agree that France has a sophisticated topless culture. For centuries, there was a position known as the maîtresse en titre, the chief royal mistress. Okay, so this was a real bona fide, and that's French for real, an official position that came with all the perks befitting the official side piece in the House of Bourbon, like an apartment. Okay, so you're probably wondering, was there an unofficial royal mistress? Why, yes, the French had a phrase for that too, the petite mistress. In English, modern English, this translates to Tanya. So while the position of the petite mistress wasn't official, it did come with benefits like a letter of rec. Anyway, the most interesting person I've read about in this position was of the maîtresse en titre was François Athénée de Rochot, Marquis de Montespan. I'm assuming that Louis XIV had a nickname for her. Either way, she was apparently witty, profligate, and beautiful. She was also once described using a sentence which I think of as both aspirational and unfortunately not her epitaph. She was droll, amusing, and used her considerable wit to mock others. Like the Bourbon monarchs, we have now learned nothing and forgotten nothing. On to the Amazon of the Biraha language. I know it doesn't look like it should be pronounced that way, but it's not like English is phonetic either. Biraha turns out to be an exceptional language for all the things it doesn't appear to have. For example, like abstract color adjectives. Biraha doesn't say something is yellow, but that it looks like something in the environment, which is yellow. There are no numbers, not even 1 through 10. All values are done as comparisons, such as two quantities being equivalent or different sizes. The most controversial take on Biraha is that the language has no recursion. This is the idea of sentences embedding ideas inside of other ideas and was long considered to be a fundamental part of human language. In case you're wondering, this means that all sentences in Biraha are single direct phrases. For example, don't sleep, there are snakes. This is also the title of a book on the language if you're ever interested in reading more about it. The Biraha also have a unique verb in their language, shibipil, which connotes how something goes into or out of experience. When a match is lit, the flame shibipil goes into experience. When a person walks out of view, the shibipil go out of experience. So this ultimately gets back to the idea of how language shapes thought. In Biraha, you have to specify how you know something or someone. If you didn't experience it or someone you know didn't, then it literally doesn't matter. This has been suggested as the main reason that no missionary has ever converted a single member of this tribe after 300 years. The Jesus stories may be nice and all, but it turns out that he's more than 2 degrees of separation away from their lives. That's it. I wish I had a better word to sum this up. Have questions? Just ask at notthatitmattersshow@gmail.com.